and welcome to lesson number 2 of Module 6. This lesson is called A Plan for Taking Vital Action. In this lesson, I'm going to help you outline a 4-part plan for taking vital action as you step toward your goals. So the plan is meant to help you choose your goals, to break them down into specific steps, schedule the steps into your week, and then carry out the steps. Because what's this all about? Doing what it takes, taking vital action. So each part of the plan is depicted in this diagram, along with the name of the corresponding worksheet or schedule. So the first step is to choose your goals, and you're going to be using the Choosing Goals worksheet for that. Second step is to identify the steps, and you're going to be using the goal stepping worksheet. Third step is to actually schedule your steps, and you'll have a weekly schedule to do this. And then finally, carry out your steps using the vital action worksheet. And all these worksheets can be found underneath this video for you to download. So as we walk through each part of the plan, we're going to be using examples from Sam and Charlie's very first week of taking vital action. So that'll give you a little bit better understanding of what we're doing. So the first step, like I said, is to choose goals. For this part of the plan, you're going to need to refer to your values and goals worksheet that you completed in Module 5. So if you didn't complete that worksheet, you want to do that before you continue on. There are 2 things involved in choosing goals. One is to identify the life areas you wish to focus on, and then secondly, to choose specific short-term and long-term goals within those life areas. So the first step, identifying the life areas. I recommend you focus on 1 to 3 of the life areas for which you identified values and goals. So which of the domains do you most want to address first? Is it important to choose a domain that is feasible to work on right now in your life? Let me say that again. It is important to choose a domain that is feasible to work on right now in your life rather than too far off in the future. Okay, so choose something that you can do right now, that you could take steps towards immediately. So think about your schedule for the next few months. Are you taking a vacation? Does Thanksgiving or some other holiday fall during the next few months? If you're going to be on vacation, it might be a good time to work on your leisure domain, for example. If Thanksgiving falls in the near future, maybe that's a good opportunity to work on the family relationships domain. So think about it in those terms as well. And then with the short-term goals and long-term goals, some of the goals on your worksheet may be short-term, so ones that can be accomplished within 12 months. For example, spending more time with friends. Other goals may be long-term, ones that will likely take a year or longer to achieve. For example, getting married or finding a new job. Either way, that's okay. I suggest you start by choosing 2 to 3 short-term goals that would be feasible for you to start working on right away, because we want to get you to start taking action now. Okay, so let's look at Sam and Charlie's goal choosing worksheets to give you a better idea of what I mean by this. So Sam's choosing goals worksheet looked like this. So her first goal was to find a new job, and that for her was a long-term goal in the life area or domain of career. Her second goal was to talk to at least one person at least once per day. That's a short-term goal in the life area of social relationships. And her third goal was to work out on the treadmill at the gym, of course a short-term goal, and in the life area of health or physical well-being. Charlie's choosing goals worksheet looked like this. His first goal was to participate in meetings at work, which is a short-term goal in the life area of career. Now you'll notice that Charlie chose to work entirely in the domain of his career, and that was fine because that was what mattered most to him. His second goal was to give presentation at the annual general meeting, a long-term goal because it was a fair it was fair off in the distance from when he filled out his goals worksheet. And then his third goal was to ask his boss for a raise, which was a short-term goal because he wanted to do that fairly soon, within the couple weeks of filling out this goals worksheet. Okay, so now it's time for you to choose your goals. Complete the goals choosing worksheet now. So pause this video and do that right now, and then come back and continue on. So once you have chosen your goals, the second part of the plan for taking vital action involves identifying steps. So breaking your goals into specific actions. So with identifying steps or specific actions, you want to imagine that your goal, for example, let's say your goal is to run a marathon, but you have never run farther than a couple blocks. You would have to break that goal down into smaller steps, right? So start with short runs and gradually increase the duration of each run. Well, same idea with your goals. So perhaps one of your goals is to invite a neighbor to your home for coffee, but you have never exchanged a word with any of your neighbors. So you could break that goal into smaller, more specific steps, starting with making eye contact with your neighbor, followed by exchanging a few words with your neighbor, and so on, and gradually building toward your goal of inviting the neighbor over for coffee. The number of steps you choose is going to depend on the pace you set for yourself. So a slow pace will require more steps than a fast pace. And how far you are from the goal, the closer you are to the goal, the fewer the steps you will need. Okay, and that's okay. Again, there's no right or wrong way of doing this. Choose a pace that is best for you. And then the number of steps that you'll need will depend on that pace and, of course, how far away you are from the goal. So the closer you are to the goal, the fewer the steps you have to carry out. Okay, so complete the goal stepping worksheet for one of the goals you identified. When breaking the goals into specific actions, it's important whenever possible to include specific details for each action. Where, for how long, and with whom will you carry out a specific action? Okay, so the more specific you are, the greater the likelihood you're going to follow through with this action. So let's have a look at Sam's goal stepping worksheets as an example to give you a better idea. So this is Sam's goal stepping worksheet for her short-term goal, her first short-term goal, which was to talk to one person at least once per day. So notice how specific Sam was about where and with whom she would carry out her steps. She broke this goal down into 6 steps, so that's what felt right for her. Step 1 was to make a comment to her next door neighbor about the weather. Step 2 was to ask her clerk at the grocery store how her day was going. Step 3, ask a receptionist at the gym about spinning classes. Step 4, initiate conversation with her colleague Maggie during their coffee break. And she set a specific time for that, 5 minutes. Step 5, chat with a coworker in the lunchroom. Again, she set a specific time for herself, about 10 minutes. And step 6, call Andrea after work and talk to her for 15 minutes. Okay, so you can see how specific Sam was about her goals. About the steps that would lead to her goal of talking to one person at least once per day. Now, this is the goal stepping worksheet that she filled out for her second short-term goal, which was to work out on the treadmill at the gym. Okay, so she had avoided using the treadmill because of her concern that she would work up a sweat and people would judge her as pathetic. Okay, so here is her strategy for gradually stepping toward a good workout on the treadmill, sweat and all. Okay, so regardless of the sweat. So her first step, she decided, would be to walk at a moderate pace for 5 minutes on the treadmill. Second step, walk at a moderate pace for 15 minutes on the treadmill. So this would be obviously done on different days, right? So one day, say the first day she was at the gym, she would walk at a moderate pace for 5 minutes and then see how that went. And then her next step, which may be the next day, the next time she's at the gym, or maybe a couple times later when she was at the gym. But the next step would be to walk at a moderate pace for 15 minutes, and then run at a moderate pace for 5 minutes, then run at a moderate pace for 15 minutes, then run at a fast pace for 5 minutes, run at a fast pace for 15 minutes. So you can see how she gradually worked up towards her goal. And then the goal stepping worksheet she filled out for her long-term goal of finding a new job, she did in much the same way. So note that Sam specified for how long she would do each action. Okay, so step 1 was to attend a workshop on resume writing at her local employment center. Step 2 was to update her resume and show it to her parents for feedback. Step 3, to show the resume to Maggie and Bill for feedback. Step 4, to send her resume to 4 potential employers. Step 5, to call former colleagues to network and share her goal with. Step 6, to call 2 potential employers about getting an interview. Step 7, practice the interview in front of her parents. And then step 8, to actually attend the interview. So finding a new job, that can be more of a long-term goal, of course, because this is carried out over probably, a few months. And the pace that you set for yourself, again, is going to be up to you. So there's no right or wrong way of doing this. Okay, so now it's your turn to break one of your goals into steps by using the goal stepping worksheet. So pause the video, do that now, and then come back and continue with the video. Okay, great work. The third part of the goal stepping plan is to organize the steps from your goal stepping worksheets into a weekly schedule. So this part is especially important to help you stay organized when you're using more than one worksheet. Okay, so again, to give you an example, let's have a look at Sam's weekly schedule. So you can see that Sam managed to fit at least one step into each day of the week, and she chose to save some of them for another week. So she didn't have every single step for just the 1 week, right? So again, that goes back to setting your own pace. She said on Sunday, at the gym, she would ask the receptionist about spinning classes. So that went towards her short-term goal of speaking to at least one person once per day. While she was at the gym, she would walk at a moderate pace for 5 minutes. So that went to her short-term goal of working out on the treadmill. And then commenting to the next door neighbor about the weather. So again, she brought in the goal of speaking to at least one person once per day. One day she decided to talk to Maggie at the coffee break, attend the workshop on resume writing. So you can see that she brought in her long-term goal there of getting a new job. Tuesday, call Andrea after work, update her resume, show it to her parents for feedback. Wednesday, ask the cashier at the grocery store how her day is going. At the gym, walk at a moderate pace for 15 minutes. Thursday, initiate discussion with a coworker in the lunchroom, show her resume to Maggie for feedback. Friday, start 2 conversations during lunch in the staff room. And then Saturday, call her former colleague to share her goal of finding a new job. I recommend just keeping it very simple. No more than, 1 to 2 steps per day. So you know that you're going to be carrying them out. Okay, you want to make it really doable for yourself. So at this time, you want to use the weekly schedule to organize your week-to-week goal stepping. Now, if you're starting to think that there's a lot of paperwork involved in this plan, rest assured that I am confident the worksheets will be beneficial to you. They're needed in the beginning to help you get into the routine of doing all this. Okay, so my experience with clients has told me that the paperwork provides a structure that will help you stay on track in stepping towards your goals. So I ask you just to trust me in this, carry it out, and eventually, of course, you're not going to need to use the paperwork anymore. So later, once you get the hang of everything, you can start to use your agenda book or phone to schedule your steps for the week. Now, once you have a schedule in place for a particular week, the final part of the goal stepping plan is to carry out each step. So first, pause the video, fill out the weekly schedule to organize your week-to-week goal stepping, and then come back and continue on. All right, and then the final step, of course, is carrying out your steps. The Vital Action Worksheet is available to help you prepare for and debrief from each of the steps in your weekly schedule. So let's walk through the worksheet using one of Sam's steps. We're going to use her step of talking to Maggie for 5 minutes at the coffee break. So this is the example that we're going to use. So the first part of the worksheet is all about preparing for vital action. So kind of preparing yourself to take the action. V, the section of the worksheet, is for recording the values and goals that will guide your action. So Sam identified connecting with others and collegiality as her values. The corresponding goal that her step was part of was to talk to one person at least once a day. I, here you can record strategies for remaining in the present moment. So in Sam's case, she indicated that she would stay focused on the conversation and connect with Maggie's eyes. So making eye contact, staying focused on Maggie, on the conversation itself, to help keep her in the present moment. And then T and AL, here you want to make note of the anxious feelings, thoughts, and urges to use safety behaviors that you are likely to take notice of from your observing self during the action. So depending on what those anticipated experiences are, you can plan for what strategy is going to work best. Okay, so you may want to use metaphors, diffusion strategies, or both. Right? So just something that you can have in mind to use in that particular situation if needed. So try coming up with brief phrases to help you remember them, like drop the rope, let go, welcome anxiety, thank you mind. Right? Simple brief phrases that are going to help trigger your memory of those techniques and skills. So Sam anticipated and planned to welcome sweating, for example, right? In her goal of, working out on the treadmill. As for thoughts about having nothing interesting to say, in her conversation, for example, with Maggie, she planned to thank her mind for those thoughts if they showed up, right? So she wanted to use the strategy of thank you mind. And so she would thank her mind for when those thoughts came up, and then let go of the familiar urge that she'd have to ask too many questions, right? That was her way to avoid the discomfort of talking about herself. Other preparation that she did included recording anything else that could be helpful. For example, if you anticipate intense physical sensations, you could practice accepting that type of sensation in advance by going back through some of the exercises from Module 2. So other preparation is just kind of to tie in anything else that you feel might be important to that specific action. Right? And then step 2 is to debrief the vital action. We're going to go through Sam's vital action worksheet in full detail in a moment, so all this will become, I think, a little clearer for you. But the debriefing vital action section of the worksheet is for recording what happened when you carried out the step, including your successes and barriers, and for noting things you can do to address those barriers in the future. So think back to the confidence cycle, right? You want to figure out what worked, what didn't work, what I can do to make it work better in the future. Your willingness switch is bound to slip off when carrying out some of your steps. That's completely normal, even when you have fully prepared. Whenever that happens, note what you are struggling with. If you tend to fuse with anxious thoughts as you take vital action, go back and review your diffusion strategies. If you tend to struggle with anxious feelings, go and revisit acceptance and opening up. So for example, Sam forgot to thank her mind for unhelpful thoughts, and instead gave in to, its advice to cut the conversation short. So to address that, she noticed that first of all, which was great. And then to address that, she planned to repeat the action, reviewing the acronym VITAL in her mind before going to the break room, and reducing the duration of talking from, instead of 5 minutes to Maggie, she broke her goal down to 2 minutes. And she revised her weekly schedule accordingly, which is completely fine. So here's Sam's Vital Action worksheet. Again, as a reminder, Sam's action was to talk with Maggie for 5 minutes at the coffee break. So on her preparing for vital action section of the worksheet, for her values, V, what are the values and goals underlying the action? So for Sam, her values are about connecting with others and collegiality. And her goal, of course, was to talk to one person at least once per day. The I, how to get back to the present moment. How will you remain in the present moment during the action? So for Sam, she said that she wanted to stay focused on the conversation, connect with Maggie's eyes. T, what internal experiences are you likely to take notice of during your action? And AL, what strategies can you use to allow your experience to be while taking vital action? So with Maggie, she said, I'll watch my inner mountain. She said, sweating is sure to show up. I'll welcome it if it does. If I have the thought I have nothing interesting to say, I'll thank my mind for those unhelpful thoughts. And then if any urges to use safety or avoidance behaviors came up, she was going to watch out for the urge to ask too many questions, because she knows that she does that a lot. She has a tendency to do that in order to control her discomfort about talking about herself. So when that came up, when she noticed that urge come up, she'd welcome it and let go of the urge instead of acting on it. And another preparation she decided to include was to practice acceptance of sweating. So she went through that exercise of accepting the sensation and the feeling the night before she decided to talk to Maggie. And then debriefing her vital action. So she came back to the worksheet and filled out this section after she had taken the vital action. Okay, so what happened, including successes and barriers. Sam wrote down, I managed to talk to Maggie and be fully present for a whole minute by staying connected with the conversation and her eyes. Then I forgot to thank my mind for unhelpful thoughts. I followed its advice to cut the conversation short because, again, in her mind, she was having the thought, I was clearly boring Maggie, or so my mind told me. Of course, that was an illusion, but she believed that thought that her mind was telling her. And so, as a result, she cut the conversation short. Actions to address barriers. Sam said, I'll review the VITAL acronym in my mind before going to the break room next time. I'll try for a 2-minute conversation instead of 5 minutes. So you can see how she adjusted her goal, her specific steps, in order to then carry out the action again at a later time. All right. So now I invite you to try out the vital action worksheet for yourself. Okay, so take vital action for one specific step right now. Is there any action that you can carry out right now, today? Perhaps making a phone call, having a conversation with someone close by, whatever that may be. Start by completing the preparing for vital action section of the vital action worksheet, and then fill in the debriefing vital action section after you have taken action. Okay, great work. You have now sampled each part of the basic plan for taking vital action on your social anxiety playing field. Now I know we went over a fair bit of material, so you may find it helpful at this point to review this lesson. We covered a lot. In the next lesson, I'm going to recommend some ways you can maximize your goal stepping experience as you step toward your vital life. So I'll see you at the next video.